Saving £10,000 might seem impossible right now, but what if I told you it's not about making huge sacrifices, it's about making smarter choices with your money. In my last video, I covered why saving your first £10,000 can change your life, but I didn't cover any practical tips for actually getting there. So in this video, I'm breaking down practical, no BS strategies that'll help you stack up that 10K faster than you might think. Whether it's tackling sneaky spending habits or using apps to your advantage, or even rethinking how you value your purchases, I've got you covered. Tip number one is to complete a yearly review of your finances. And let's be real, sitting down to review your finances for the year probably isn't your idea of fun. That said, it can be incredibly eye-opening and an absolute game changer for hitting your savings goals. When we spend money day to day, it often feels like small, insignificant amounts that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But when you go ahead and zoom out, look at the bigger picture over a year, that's where the real story is. And sometimes it's a shocking one. Take me, for example. I'm a big fan of a night out, and if you live in the UK, you probably are too. It's our culture to head down to the pub for a few drinks. And personally, I would spend £100 to £150 on a night out here in the UK. And sometimes I would be doing that twice a week back in my younger years. And again, it doesn't seem like a huge amount of money at the time, especially if you're making enough to cover that. But over the course of a year, it really adds up. Even if you spend on average £100 going out, that's £5,200 a year. And that might be an average of some cheaper nights out at the pub combined with more expensive nights going to concerts, maybe getting a hotel here and there. Now let's turn the spotlight on you. Maybe you're subscribed to services that you've completely forgotten about and that's adding up over the course of a year. Or maybe you're smoking and vaping and not realizing how much that is actually costing you other than your health. Individually, when you go and make these purchases, they seem minor. But when you total them up over the course of a year, they could be eating into your savings in a big way. So how do you get started? Step one is to download your transaction history from all of your bank accounts and credit cards. You then want to take those files and combine them into a single spreadsheet so you've got every transaction from the year there in one place. You then need to go through line by line and sort your spending into categories like travel, subscription, nights out, the shop, whatever it is. The more detailed your categories are, the clearer your insights will be. And look, this process, it's going to take you 3 to 4 hours, but trust me, it's time well spent. You'll not only spot the areas where you're overspending, but you'll also discover exactly where you can cut back to reach that 10K savings goal faster. So start with this review and you'll be armed with the data you need to take control of your money. It's like a financial health check and it's a first step towards a better budget for next year. Tip number two is to only spend on things that actually bring you value. Let's face it, in 2024, we're living in an age of relentless advertising. The average person spends 2 hours and 23 minutes on social media each day. And during that time, we're hit with anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 ads every single day. And guess what? It works. I know because I've been on the other side of it, running ads to sell products, and right now I broker businesses that use these strategies to generate millions of dollars a year. And out of thousands of ads you see, at least a few of them will convince you to buy something. Not because you need it, but because you're caught in the moment. If you're serious about saving 10K, it's time to push back on this constant consumer pressure. And look, I'm not saying you need to save every penny that you have, but you do need to go out there and make some sacrifices and focus your spending on what truly matters to you. Start by asking yourself, does this purchase genuinely bring value to my life? A practical rule to follow is that for anything over £50, sleep on it for a couple of days before hitting buy. So many purchases are simply pure impulse, and I've been there. I click an ad, I go to the page, I end up buying it, and days later a parcel shows up and I think, what even is that? I can't even remember purchasing it. And it's that kind of mindless spending that needs to go. Instead, zero in on the things that bring you real value and joy in your life. For me, I'll spend what I need on high quality running shoes because running's a huge part of my life. I'm not going to skimp there and buy cheap trainers because I love it. I also like to invest in concerts and travel and experiences because I deeply value that. But outside of those areas, I keep things very simple. My wardrobe's basic. I'm not constantly upgrading to the latest tech and gadgets. I'll just do it when I need to. And your priorities might be completely different than mine, and that's completely fine. The key is to identify what truly matters to you. Maybe it's dining out with your friends, or investing in one of your hobbies, or upgrading your car. Whatever it is, spend intentionally there, but ruthlessly cut back on everything else that doesn't add genuine value to your life. The goal isn't to stop spending, it's to redirect your money towards the things that actually enrich your life, so you're not wasting it on mindless spending, buying things that you don't even want or need a week later. Focusing your spending on what you truly value, you'll not only save money, but you'll also feel more content with how you're using it. Tip number 3 is Parkinson's Law. You've probably heard of Parkinson's Law in the context of work. It states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So think back to school when you were given 2 weeks to finish a project or essay. Did you carefully work on it every day, or did you scramble to make last minute edits the night before it was due and complete it in a much shorter time? Chances are you procrastinated until the last minute and then did it at the very end. Even though the project could have been wrapped up in a small period of time, it still took you the full 2 weeks to do it. When the deadline shrinks, you somehow find a way to get it done. And the same thing applies to money. If you earned £3,000 a month, you'll probably find a way to spend that full £3,000 a month. Even if your necessities only cost £2,000, that extra £1,000, it just disappears because your spending expands to fill the money that you have available. So how do you flip the script? Pay yourself first. Here's how it works. The moment that your paycheck hits your account, set aside 10 to 20% of it for savings or investments. For example, if you earn £3,000, transfer £300 to £600 straight into a separate account. Use an account that's harder to access, one without a debit card or easy app transfers. The less temptation there is there, the better. This creates a shorter deadline for your money. When you set aside a chunk of your income first, you're left with less to work with, and somehow you naturally adjust your spending to fit within that smaller budget. You'll just find ways to make it work without feeling deprived. Tip number 4 is saving during the workday. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because it's memed to death. Oh, you can't buy a home? Well, stop buying coffees and then you'll be able to do it, said the boomer. Well, spending money on food throughout the workday is one of the easiest levers to pull to help you stop spending so much without ruining your quality of life or really seeing any change at all. When I used to work my corporate job at PwC, this was my daily spending. I would get a coffee and baguette in the morning on the way to the train, would cost me about £8. I would then get lunch, £10, a second coffee during the day, £4, and that was £22 per day. Whereas a simple homemade lunch and coffee would probably cost me around £5 per day. That's a £17 savings, and over 5 days a week, that's £4,420 per year. Now, maybe you still want to get lunch out on a Friday or even 2 days a week, but if you're struggling to save, this is an easy way to do it without affecting the quality of your life. You'll actually probably be healthier, have a better lifestyle, feel better, and look better simply by doing this as well. So it's good for your finances and your health. And over the course of 5 years, you and your partner could put away 15 to 30k between you and actually finally put that deposit down on a house. So maybe the boomers are right after all. And look, if you're already saving 10 to 20% of your income and you're not in a position where you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't really need to save £10,000, keep eating those lunches if you enjoy it. But if you're still doing this and you're struggling to put any money away, this is one of the biggest levers that you can pull, and it's shocking how much it actually adds up over the course of a year. Tip number 5 is to utilize saving apps. This is an interesting method for saving, and I kind of feel two ways about it, but it could be useful for you. In apps like Monzo and Revolut, they have what's called a roundup feature. For example, if you spent £9.50 in a shop, it would put 50p into a savings pot for you. You can also put a multiplier on this of 2x, 3x, 4x if you want to put some more money away. So if you struggle to set money aside by yourself, this can be a really easy way to start putting a few extra pounds away. So anytime that you spend money, you actually save a little money too. Now the caveat to this is it can put you in a bad spiral where you think that spending money equals saving money, and that's not the case. However, if you're going to just keep spending the way that you do and not increase your spending because you think it's saving, this feature can actually be quite helpful for some people to start building a small saving pot and getting the motivation to kickstart your savings journey and go a little harder elsewhere. And again, This money goes into a pot that you don't touch or use for day-to-day expenses. If you put it on 2x or 3x, 5x, 10x, it can start to really add up quickly. An interesting idea that I actually had for these apps is to have a similar feature, but it's a percentage of the transaction. So it would be like a sales tax, but for yourself. So if you want to save 20% of your income each month, it would simply add 20% to each payment and put it into a separate pot. So if you're used to spending all your money each month, you still know that 20% is actually going into a savings pot. Again, this method kind of goes back to Parkinson's law here, where you would simply adjust to everything being 20% more expensive and stick within the budget that you have. The last tip, number 6, is value versus price. Just because something is cheaper, it doesn't mean it's going to save you money in the long run. For example, I used to purchase loads of t-shirts when I was younger out of shops like Topman and River Island. And to be honest, these t-shirts weren't even that cheap. They were maybe like £20 or so, but the quality was awful. I'd probably get 5 wears out of them at best before they started to look worn and unwearable. Whereas now I'll maybe go to a slightly more high-end shop. It's not designer stuff, but it's higher quality clothes and pay £30 for a t-shirt. The initial purchase might be slightly more expensive, but on a per wear basis, it's actually much cheaper. For example, I might get 15 wears out of the £30 t-shirt. So the £20 Topman t-shirt would cost £4 per wear, whereas the higher end £30 t-shirt would cost £2 per wear. Over time, it's actually much cheaper to purchase the more expensive top. In the moment, it seems like a bad decision, but it is actually better. And this can be applied to a lot of things. For example, if you like high quality coffee and you normally get it from a coffee shop, it might cost you £4 a coffee. Over a year, that's £1,460 if you drink a coffee every day. Instead, you could purchase an expensive £500 coffee machine that produces similar quality coffee. And over the same year, those coffees now cost you £1.37. Now, when you add in the beans and a cup or whatever, it might cost you £1.50 a cup. But this machine will also likely last you for much longer than 1 year. It may be a large expense up front, but over a long period of time, it can actually save you a lot of money. So there you have it. That is 6 proven ways to save £10,000 faster. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making consistent, intentional changes that add up over time. So if you find these tips helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the Money Sprout channel here for more, and let me know in the comments what's your biggest money saving goal this year. Also, check out this video where I discuss the 6 reasons that saving your first £10,000 will change your life.